John Bon Jovi, we meet again. We spoke in February. I was actually the very first media interview you did for this new album. I hope I didn't jinx it.
No, I think not. But could you imagine if we had told this as a tale back in February? Neither of us would have been believed by anyone ever. The world has certainly changed.
It's pure crazy this year. You knew it was going to be a big year, particularly in America with the election, hence the 2020 album title. But you could never have imagined this.
No, no. And when we spoke last, and I was in the UK, and I was there with Prince Harry for the Invictus Games, and I had written a song that's on the record called Unbroken. The COVID was just coming around. I went from China and is crossing around to Europe, and the Italians were talking about it, and the UK was saying, well, it might come here. And I remember, our speaking and then subsequent interviews that day and saying, maybe this thing, if it were to happen 2 weeks from now, I wouldn't been able to come here with Prince Harry in the games and such. And then here we are now with 200,000 Americans dead and people in Australia in quarantine, which, by the way, that's not being reported here in American news. We're not aware that you guys are in lockdown.
Really? Well, it's been quite obviously a big story here in Melbourne, particularly in Victoria, because we are in, some of the harshest lockdowns, in the world. Funnily enough, John, most people are really behind it. Most people are just understand that this is a pandemic. We do what we need to do. We shall, you know well and truly, yes. And they're just getting behind it. There are some who are protesting about having to wear masks or that there's a curfew at the moment. But most people are just digging in.
And I'm so appreciative of that kind of national spirit to do the right thing. And I really applaud all the men and women in Australia for doing the right thing.
Absolutely, John. When you decided to postpone the release, was that initially just because it was hard to release an album due to COVID, or was it this album now is incomplete because there is COVID and then there was the Black Lives Matter protests? What was the thinking?
I couldn't have predicted either of those events at the time that I made the decision. I could make the decision to cancel outright the tour. Most of the tours that were slated to go out postponed, and they just took a date next year and held on to the money. And my first thought was, people have to pay the rent and they have to pay credit card bills, and the uncertainty of knowing when a tour might be able to go out again. I said, I'm not worried about it. If in a year from now, when we go out, if people have the income and they want to come, amen. So I canceled the tour. But my thought with the album was, nobody in those trying times back in March was going to want to focus on a rock and roll band's record. And so I said, let's postpone it. But then in turn, the events that led me to continue writing, i.e. the severity of the COVID crisis, and then ultimately the George Floyd death here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, caused me to rethink the record, tweak some of the other songs, write two new ones, and then really consider that 2020 as an album title and a concept was now complete. I think in retrospect, it was more of a calendar year than a social observation, because the two songs I took off, which were great songs and will be bonus tracks, but they were, boy girl love songs. And even though that's part of the world that goes round, they weren't as pertinent in retrospect.
The album's about to be released. Are you confident, John, that it will be released and you won't have to go back into the studio and record any more songs? Is there still more crazy ahead of us?
Oh, there is definitely more crazy ahead of us. We lost an icon of our Supreme Court, a lady by the name of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who really has been looked up to by both sides of the aisle for what she did for equality. And she passed a couple of days ago which is causing incredible turmoil in our Supreme Court system. And then, of course, our election is 40 days away. And no one thinks that whether Donald Trump is reelected or Joe Biden is elected, that it'll be an easy transition. So I better get the record out before I pull it again and have to write 3 or 4 more songs. Or maybe it'll be 2020 volume 2.
There is plenty of people, certainly outside of America and obviously within America, who would like to see the back of Donald Trump. But I'm curious to see if that happens. I think there's this naive thinking that the problems go away, that his followers will just accept the decision and move on, or even that Trump himself would accept the decision and moved on. Are you still worried, even if he loses, that alt-right that has risen now and still exists?
Well, let me look at it just a little differently. Those who the idea of Donald Trump wanted to speak on behalf of was what he said were the unheard voices in America. And so let us consider that the good but the unheard voices of the American populace, who are not the coastal elite as he would refer to them. I think that there was a voice that deserved to be heard louder. I really do. Now, take it, now consider what I'm talking about as more of the hardworking, not the right fringe kind of people who are supremacists and that. I'm not discussing them at all. They were always there and, and always will be in some manner. But just those who he was meant to represent. What I would hope, whether it's Joe Biden or someone else, that this healing process needs, but hopefully it can begin. Because regardless of, even let's say Donald gets in again, and he's such a divisive force. But if he could find his good angels somehow and realize that when he addresses blue and red America, it's one America. The way the rest of us consider it's one world, because this divisive kind of leadership, it can't be successful. It cannot be ultimately successful. And so even if he does win, I can only hope to God that he can see some way to heal. And I can go on for hours. I won't take up all my time talking.
Well, let's talk about the songs that you've added. Two really cracking songs. We'll start with "Do What You Can," which I'm told was inspired by a photograph I think your wife Dorothea took of you washing the dishes.
Yeah.
It's true?
It is true. We have 3 JBJ Soul Kitchens in New Jersey. Our community restaurants are based on ultimately volunteerism. If you volunteer for a meal because you cannot pay, you feel empowered, but that's what makes our model work. And when the crises hit, we could no longer let volunteers in. But I used to, and was then called upon to wash dishes again. And in doing so, Dorothea, unbeknownst to me, snapped my picture, wanted to put that caption on the social media site to let the in-need population know in the craziest of times, we're open. We're here for everyone and anyone. And what she was looking for from me was the time of the day and the day of the week that we were going to be open. But out of my mouth came, if you can't do what you do what you can't. The next morning I woke up and I went, oh, there's a big old Bon Jovi song title right there. And so I sat down and I wrote the song. And it was just what was going on. The Canadian border had closed to America. They're shutting down the borders and they're, closing up the schools, rolling up their sidewalks, one last paycheck. And that was exactly when lockdown was going to start. This is your last paycheck. Borders are shut and people are staying home. You're all confused. Nothing's the same. The game. We got to make it through. Factually reporting what was going on. But there I was saying, if I can't sing, what am I going to do? I'm going to wash a dish and I'm going to feed somebody. If you can't do what you do what you can.
We spoke about last time about some of the songs and the importance for you to be specific in some of the examples you use with the gun violence in some of the songs. And you're even specific in these, in Do What You Can. There's references to Skyping the prom, to chicken farmers in Arkansas and PPE. So you have taken that feeling from the other songs into this, even though it's a bigger Bon Jovi song, the process still seemed the same.
The lyrical content is spot on. There is no hyperbole anywhere. In fact, I went back since we first met and fine-tooth combed through those lyrics, rewrote, re-recorded the entire lyric of Beautiful Drug or Brothers in Arms was tweaked, or 4 of the other songs were tweaked, plus the 2 new ones, because the specificity needed to be spot on throughout the record for me to be satisfied.
I'm a lifelong Bon Jovi fan. The first concert I went to was New Jersey, here in Melbourne, at Rod Laver Arena. And obviously, Bon Jovi exploded with Slippery, and then New Jersey was huge. I think we all thought we knew what we were getting. We were getting this massive band with anthems. And then you released, you went solo with the Young Guns 2 album, and it was a different side of you. And I remember thinking, wow, I wasn't expecting this. And it was still Bon Jovi, but it was something different. And you were almost writing to that cowboy, using that as a motif through that record. And then Keep the Faith came out, and it was Bon Jovi again, but there was a song called Dry County where I thought, wow, I wasn't expecting this. And this is an observation from a humble Bon Jovi fan. Are you at your best when you are writing with a fire lit under you?
Well, I don't know, because I love the collaborative effort, and I've collaborated on some of our biggest songs, looking back in my life. But it seems that when I sit down and I write the ones by myself, they become the ones that are the slow burn but stayed with you, like a Dry County, but it's the lyrical content. And that was a time when I was driving across our country on a motorcycle, so you're on your own kind of a journey. And those are the kinds of songs that I would write. The Young Guns record, I was, in retrospect, because it's 30 years ago now, 30 years ago, but I was hiding behind Billy the Kid and that movie soundtrack, but I was really expressing myself and my own pain and, kind of questioning why I was doing all of that I was doing. Now I can just, with clarity, write those same songs and be me.
The video for Do What You Can, I believe you walked the streets of New York when it was pretty much locked down. What was it like? Was it eerie walking the streets of the city that never sleeps while it's taking a nap?
Yeah, it was really surreal, because I had left the city as well. Our family went out to Jersey, and I didn't want to come back here for any reason. But obviously for the video, it made sense. And I was in Times Square, and I was shooting that first shot, and it was the first shot of the day, and there's no one there. And I was singing because the band couldn't even come in to do the video because you couldn't really fly. And so here I am, sort of alone, but I was reminiscing in my mind after the biggest tragedy in New York, which was 9/11. The NFL, our football league, kicked off a year later and asked Bon Jovi to play Times Square. And in Times Square, where I'm now standing there singing my new song for nobody, I was reminiscing to a time when the NFL asked us to play Times Square and allowed 500,000 people to come and watch us in Times Square. So now you're singing a song 20 years later on another tragedy alone. That was like a weird Twilight Zone scene.
The album it obviously covers so many social issues. I think the years to come, it's going to feel like a beautiful time capsule of this year. Like this is I feel like it's a document.
Well, I thank you for that. I thank you because I'm proud of it and I've worked very hard on it. We've worked very hard on it. But I don't know about beautiful. It's just it's a moment in time. You know, when I was watching the documentary Laurel Canyon, if you got a chance to see that about Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young and Joni Mitchell and the Jackson Browne and the whole scene there, and how Stephen Stills wrote the protest songs, and Neil Young wrote Ohio, and it was a protest song, and yet they marked a moment in time. You know, here was Neil Young talking about the shooting of a college student during the Vietnam protests, and Stephen Stills doing the same. I was thinking that I'm capturing moments of this era right here, right now. These are going to be chapters in a book of our lives, you know, and they will live on, but they'll bring you back to wearing a mask and doing what you can. And that's exactly what I'd hoped to do, but what I think I've done.
The other new song is American Reckoning, which is possibly, you know, the most powerful song I think you've possibly ever written. You say America's conscience has been looted, its soul is under siege. Did those lyrics come quickly to you? Because it seems like that would have been a tough song to write.
It was on one hand it was really easy, and on another it was difficult to make sure I got it right. So, you know, being witness and only wanting to bear witness because I didn't live that. This is George Floyd's story. This is Breonna Taylor's story. Ahmaud Arbery's story. This is the what I witnessed with George Floyd. So it wasn't hard to sit down and write, America's on fire. That was literally what was happening. There's protests in the streets. And at first I wrote, the storefronts have been looted. And I went, too literal and really not associated with the pure reason why they were protesting. So I changed it. The conscience has been looted. Made better sense. You know, her soul is under siege. Yes, you know, America, our soul, everything that we pretended to stand for has been called out and is in fact under siege. But even when I got it that far, I got another chorus and I played it for Dorothea. And she goes, great verse, not a good chorus. Go back. And I closed myself in the room, rewrote it, played it a second time, played it a third time, played it for friends, played it for African American members of high important stature, played it for Tico. Tico, my drummer, who is apolitical. He was the one that said, American Reckoning is the title, not what you had as the title. And I went, oh, okay, you're right. And that's when the song was absolutely finished. But the song initially was going to be called I Can't Breathe. And there were people that were uncomfortable with me saying that as a title. And I listened to them, but Tico said, there's the lyric, it's right on your song, it's in the last verse. And I went, yeah, it is America's Reckoning, and it makes even better sense. And the joke of Tico's seriousness is, for nearly 40 years, he doesn't know the title to one of our songs. He doesn't know the lyric of anything. He knows the beat. He goes, Brad, that one that goes, rah, 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 rah. I go, yeah, it's called Living on a Prayer. He's like, yeah, that one. But it was the drummer who got me to realize that the right title for probably the best song I've ever written was American Reckoning.
You asked a question, is it a moment or is this a moment or is this a movement? What do you think the answer is?
Well, I believe now it's a movement. I believe it is a movement. I believe that it's really starting to resonate with the people in our country, and they're finally ready to face that reckoning and to look past it. I do believe it's starting to stick, and you see the protests, the right protests, not the the ones that are causing, looting and stuff, but protesting. It's white people, it's black people, it's young, it's old, it's working class people and white collar people, walking the street together here. And I think, I hope, I pray that for the sake of the future of our world, people can get over the color of their skin. These petty differences, we got to just stop it already.
We spoke that you don't want to do 100 shows anymore. You've gone past that idea of the full-on Bon Jovi tours. Has being in lockdown changed that at all? Have you gone, well, maybe traveling around might not be such a bad thing?
I don't know the answer, to be honest with you. I think even more as I sit here, I wonder in a year from now how I'll answer you. And I just got to be honest, whether I'll say I'm really over it now, or I'm dying to get out there and play. I never, and I'd said this to you 6, 8 months ago, so I'm sticking to the truth. I was never an applause junkie. I'm not looking for that. I don't need the adulation. What I love more than life is when I write a song, and then the second phase is that you take it from the notebook to the recording studio and you go, yeah, I was right. It is good. The third facet, which was sharing it with the people, is great. It's fun. But I don't live for living out of a suitcase anymore. I did it. I did it a lot. We're very good at it, but it beats the hell out of you. I'm very, very good at it, but I don't look forward to those long tours anymore.
You did mention to me, I think it was off air actually, when we spoke last, that you would love to play one day the Sydney Opera House. Is that still on your bucket list?
It would be on my bucket list, absolutely. Could you imagine if I went in there with an acoustic show, and did this kind of a record? It would be wonderful. Those are the iconic kind of gigs that would be still fun. That and the Royal Albert Hall, and when I did a night, in the West End, or on Broadway when we did that years ago, unique kind of things. That's more appealing to me than the idea of looking at a calendar that's 200 shows.
Last time we spoke, you said it takes often a year for you to know if you've made a great album, that you need time with it before you can really reflect on it. You've had more time with this one. You've had, because you've had to, postpone it. I think you've made a great album. Are you comfortable in the idea that you've made a great album, maybe your finest album?
That's very, very kind of you, and I'm real appreciative. But I think that having had the opportunity to have this 6, 7 months now to reflect on what I thought was finished and then write the 2 best songs, I got it right. That much I know. I got it right. And whether in a year from now I think, oh, I could have tweaked that a little more or written one more better song, we'll find out. But up until this point, with the opportunity to look back, I'm really glad that the 2 new songs are the best ones on the record. That's always your goal.
John, I'm going to be a little bit self-indulgent with this final question. I'm going to go back to, I mentioned my first concert was New Jersey. I remember playing songs in my class. There was a few of us going, mates, we were totally, we're blood on blood, we're going to the concert. And my teacher, and I'll name and shame him, his name was Mr. Wells, and he came in and he was a big Beatles fan, and Beatles are great, obviously. But I still remember him saying to me that the Beatles are still around and this band Bon Jovi won't be around in 5 minutes. What would you like to say to Mr. Wells now, 32 years later?
Well, hello, sir. You know what? I know where he was coming from. I really do. And it's a test of time, when a song lives for a second generation, that it's rarefied air. And I could see where he might say that about a long-haired New Jersey bar band that got lucky. because I'm a huge Beatle fan too. But we're still here.
Congratulations on the album. It is, I do honestly believe it is your greatest album, and I would love to see you playing this album alone at the Opera House. I think these songs would work perfect live, and when your fans get to know them and learn them, to be in a room singing those songs would be quite a powerful and entertaining night.
Thank you so very much, and I'm glad we got to catch up again. I'm sorry about this lockdown. This is just unfortunate news to my ears, and I'm praying for y'all.
A wise man once said, John Bon Jovi, you do what you can.
Do what you can. That's right. All right. I hope to see you all. Be safe.
Thanks, mate.